righty, here we go. I'm Travis Neville. This is the Travis Neville Podcast, and I got the opportunity to record with John from Nordic Masculinity. He's a man who is from Iceland, really cool accent, currently living in Spain, and we covered pretty much the importance of male role modeling, how important that is. That's sort of the general theme that we ran with. But great conversation. I enjoyed talking with him. I think we jammed for like 2 hours, so a little extra action for you today, a little extra sauce. But here it is, my conversation with John from Nordic Masculinity. I hope it helps you to get your shit together. Have a great week. I'm Travis Neville. I'm an American guy. I write books to help men be better at being men. The one that gets the most reads is this one. It's called Ideal Man Reviving Masculinity. I made it as a kind of a handbook for that young man who maybe wasn't raised without a great father, especially in the U.S. here. We've got a tremendous, I'll call it an epidemic of boys without role models around, so we have a high percentage of single mother raised children, and that disproportionately affects boys. And they go to school, and most of their teachers are women. And, boys are, they become men socially, whereas a girl becomes a woman biologically, right? So they'll just want to reproduce, hold that baby warm, caring, nurturing, all that's just natural, comes from within them. But a boy, in order to learn how to be a man, that's shifting from childhood to responsibility. He's got to have the role models. He's got to have someone there teaching him that. So that's why I wrote this one. And then just last year, I finished Mastering Masculinity, just sort of midlife checkpoint. Just to make sure you're doing things well. But that's my whole thing, man. I'm trying to help men be better at being men, for women, for children, for families, for the world. That's my deal. And I'm glad to be here with you, John. I've been watching your stuff for a few years here, and super glad to be here, man.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I actually started with like the opposite. I had a fantastic dad who was like,
Me too.
especially when I look back on it, he was like the almost a perfect masculine role model to, and I'm not even
Nice.
exaggerating that, but I wasn't the best student, let's put it that way. It's I think I'm the reason I recognize troubles of so many now is that like I had everything kind of handed to me, everything came so easy. I never had to struggle for anything.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
like when I grew up from like after 18 or so, like I started to fall behind in everything, like was too good for certain jobs, and I
Mhm.
was I was great at all sports, but I didn't work at it. So I watched people that weren't as good as me pass me by. Same with school. So I got, bitter, angry, like thought life owed me something, and then just
Mhm.
something magical happened, and I realized I wasn't owed shit. And but all those teachings still stuck with me. They just took a while to grow.
Yeah. Well, you're not uncommon. I mean, even those of us who've had it real good,
Yeah.
it's easy to take that for granted, right? And ultimately, you do get to a point in your life as a man where you do realize that, hey, everything in front of me, it's my responsibility. I've got to take accountability for the things that are wrong in my life and for the things that are going well. No one else is going to do it for you, right? So good for you that you figured that out, and awesome that you're out helping other guys do the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's that was, as I said, it was just that was a magic turning point, so to speak, because
Mhm.
when I actually got this into my head, because I'm the only one that can actually get this into my head. No one can do that for you. And
Right.
that's when I realized all the lessons I learned, they'd actually like they were there. I just, I wasn't ready for them at the time.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah. And that's what your dad did for you.
Yeah.
He put those things there so that when you're ready to access them, they were just right there at arm's reach.
Yeah, that's and you were saying like with the single mother thing, that's also
Mhm.
very common here in Iceland, and young men are facing tremendous troubles here. And they Iceland has one of the lowest I don't know what it's called with the school scores. They can barely, like half of them can barely read after graduating high school.
Yeah.
It's an epidemic here. It's really bad.
We deal with that as well. And I was a high school teacher coming out of college. So I've got some background with that. Both my parents were teachers as well. And what I figured out through the research I'm doing now is school just is not set up for boys. I mean,
No.
the sit down, be quiet, do as you're told. not, that's not natural for us, right? We want to be out experiencing things, touching things, competing, being bold, taking risks. That's where a boy learns. And there's just no real way to do that in a mass market way. It's very difficult for a school system, an institution like that, to bring that experience to a young man. And so, yes, of course, boys do poorly in school. We're at a point right now in the U.S. where males are only earning 39% of college degrees in the U.S. 39%, that's pretty low. So all those academic areas are just more suited to the female mindset, and that's the thing we're going to have to figure out.
Yeah, it's very similar to the Icelandic numbers, and oddly enough, you see some of the schools, they're actually like still doing recruiting like women for certain
For STEM
courses.
fields, yeah,
Yeah, it's but
math and
they're
science.
meanwhile the boys were left playing football in one of the schools. Like that's outrageous to me. And if you'd reverse the sexes, like that principal would be fired, you know? We
Oh, for
know that
sure.
would happen.
Yeah, instantly.
But
Yeah, that's sad. That's sad. And I, to that end, I coach football here in my hometown, and I'm on the school board. So I've always believed that anybody who wants to be an advocate or somebody who goes out there and protests, I think what they're admitting is their impotence at that point. If you really want to help a situation, get into it from the inside and change it from within. Now, I'm not saying we have a bad school system here. We don't. But I know what the numbers are, and I know what the situation is that you just outlined. So I'm in there trying to make sure that that doesn't happen here. And that we need more men to do exactly that, to realize that, hey, I can impact the world around me. But, it takes the things that your father taught you and the things that my father taught me, to have the confidence to take that step, to go and do a thing like that, get inside an institution and try to change it. So kind of the whole thing kind of stops without a good dad at home, really, is what it comes down to.
yeah, I think we have a tremendous amount of like I think like 90+% of like teachers in Iceland are women, and
Mm,
women like they're good teachers, but it takes it just takes a man to understand boys, you know. It really
for sure.
does. You can There's only a
Definitely.
certain amount you can learn. There's still going to be a lot that you will never understand about it. I think.
Well, let's look at it from the other perspective, like you said, with the numbers. Um, could a male teacher help a young girl understand womanhood, or understand her menstrual cycle, for example, or these feelings she's getting? Of course not. He's got no idea. He's going to be completely lost. And equally lost are women trying to understand boys. Equally lost, and that's no one's fault. We're not here trying to blame women or blame men. It just is. That's the situation. So we've got to figure out ways to circumvent that.
And I really love what you touched on there with the you got to start like from the bottom, because one thing that makes me so annoyed is a lot of people, especially activists, they really, really seem to prefer to want to start from the top, like top of the pyramid. Like,
Right.
yeah,
That's really
they
unrealistic.
yeah, they actually go out there and they are protesting things that are happening far away, halfway across the world. Meanwhile, they're neglecting themselves and everything at home. I don't get this kind of thinking. I can't understand how some people can't see it, but I think some people just don't want to see it.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely don't want to. And it's so often that what you're seeing there with those activists being involved with things across the world, really, it's just virtue signaling, right? They're trying to make everyone else think that they are a good person. And so often that's a projection, right? Those are generally people who don't want to work on themselves, and hence the area around them. I tell men specifically, you want to change your world. You want to be a great man for your world. What is your world? Well, let's define it. It's the people that you are going to be in touch with, your family, certainly, your neighborhood, your friend circle, the people at work, your community. That's it. That's the end of your reach, really.
Yeah,
Guys like you and I, John, we reach a little farther than that because we do what we do. But most people, your world is very, very small. And the things that you see on this little machine that you hold in your hand, that doesn't really affect you. That doesn't really have any. You can't affect it. That's for sure. So shrink your world down, impact that. When you do that and make it a little more bite size, I think it becomes easier for guys, right?
I absolutely agree when you say that they don't want to work on themselves, because I've been there. And
Mm.
when I talk to people, I genuinely, I don't know if you've seen like on my page, when someone comes in with an attitude, first time I will give them the benefit of the doubt. If they continue, I will answer in kind, because do
Mhm.
you want to come in there and argue, or do you want to come in and talk? Because that's not the same thing.
Yeah, we're here to try to improve people, not to drag people down. And that's another thing that's just universal about men. Good men build. Good men do not tear down. And to that end, just on kind of sidebar, John, I've recently, the last few months, gotten into Substack, and what I've found there is that it's sort of social media for grown-ups. I do get to have those good conversations like you and I are having right now, and without sort of the noise of the knee-jerk emotional, too young to really know what they're talking about crowd wanting to chime in. And so then I don't get distracted by that, or I'm still on all the standards, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. But when I really want to learn or get better, social media is tough, man. Like I said, that's why I like Substack. It's working out
Yeah.
for me, and I'm not here to plug Substack. I'm
No,
not,
no,
but
no.
I've had a lot of traction there lately, and it's going pretty well. So I recommend it for you as well.
I'll definitely give it a shot. I do agree with social media. Social media is huge in Iceland, and I was fortunate enough with you can see the letters at the bottom, Norræn Karlmennska. It's actually the Icelandic
You see
translation
that?
for Nordic masculinity, and I was fortunate enough.
Ah,
Yeah, it's not easy to
that's
pronounce, my
cool.
friend.
No, it's not. But really cool though. That's just dying to be a tattoo, I would imagine. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to be invited to when a new streaming service was made, the broadcast, and I had no idea what I was doing. I don't think I'd ever recorded a video. I learned as I went, and I chose to stick with the name, even if I knew it would be ridiculed and people would cringe even because just the word masculinity is,
Oh,
we're taking it back little by little, I think.
yeah. I mean, I tell you, just specifically here in the U.S., I'm not a huge political guy, but I recognize that since our election in November, um, men are kind of coming out of the shadows, stepping up. And I had this conversation with my friend Adam last week on his show. To that extent, right? Men are starting to, like you said, own it. Hey, wait a minute. No, I don't have to sit back while you promote everybody but me. I don't have to sit back while you attack me just because I'm a male and I happen to be white. That's what's happening here. Guys are finally starting to step up and push back on that, and I love it because you just can't have a quality society if you don't have strong men, and part of that is being empowered, right? You got to empower yourself to go, like I said, to have the confidence to step up and try to change some stuff.
Yeah, with the election and like when you see things like Facebook, the Facebook guy Zuckerberg stepping up,
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about this kind of stuff. I don't know if it's the result because of him being forced to take like steroids to fix an injury, and his testosterone
right.
levels rose, and then he started to see the light, or simply because he knew that if he didn't ride the wave, he would probably get crushed under it. I can't make up my mind which one it is.
Yeah. Either way, I'm not going to give him a lot of credit for it. I think that he is a sort of a lagging indicator, right, of what's going on in his industry. And fair enough, he's got to run a social media company, so he does have to follow those waves. I tend to lean that way, that it's more of that than it is him actually choosing to be like strap it on and actually be a man, grow a little bit of a beard, start doing jujitsu, working out a little bit. Um, but that it certainly helps, as you know. I mean, putting that time in, the physical rigor, it physically moves up your testosterone level, actually makes you stronger, smarter, sharper, more aggressive, the things that you need to be as a man. And either way, John, I kind of don't care. That guy's pretty influential.
Yeah,
So if he's going to move in that direction, that helps us all. It really
yeah,
does. Rising
it
tide
really
lifts
does.
all boats, as they say. Yeah, for sure.
Really does. And I think what also, as you mentioned, changed in with this election is, because the U.S. always tends to be around 4 years ahead of Iceland. No matter what happens in the U.S., no matter if it's stupid or like outright retarded, it always comes to Iceland a couple of years later. and and
Well, man, I've got bad news for you because the last 4 years were shit, bro. You got
yeah,
some bad shit coming your way. I'm
we're pre-
sorry.
we're preparing, man. We're preparing.
Good. Yeah. They're going to need you. They're going to need you for sure.
But one thing that was about all of this, and I think what's different from this uh, than like the last like turning point, I would actually call it, as you were saying, you can feel that men are pushing back now, like they've had enough.
Definitely.
they've seen enough. Once you start to take their livelihoods and threaten their families, that's when the normal everyday man will rise up, and that's when you can't really contain it when those men start to make their voices heard.
No doubt about it. And I mean, what you're tapping on there is this concept that the most dangerous man, the most, I guess, useful man is the one who's protecting his home. I mean, we see it here in the U.S. all the way back to our own Revolutionary War, where we're fighting the British, the strongest naval power, military power in the world at the time. And we, a bunch of farmers with rifles in our own farm fields, we beat them, right, and pushed them out. And that's a testament to, again, how strong that man is when he's protecting his own. Look at Afghanistan. Again, we go in as the U.S., the biggest, strongest war machine ever, devised by humanity, and we got our asses kicked by a bunch of kind of hill-dwelling guys who were protecting their farms and homes. That's what it is. I mean, that piece of masculinity can never be underestimated. It doesn't matter what weapons you create. That's the most dangerous man right there, someone who's protecting his home. He will do whatever he has to do. And I love that, man. When you get to tap into that and understand that that's who you are, it gives you a sense of peace. It does.
Yeah, I love the saying that the most dangerous warrior is not the one who hates what's in front of him, but who loves what's behind him. And
There it is.
yeah, I love that saying. And I think that's going to be coming to Europe soon. And I think it's going to be, unfortunately, I really think it's going to be very ugly when it does.
Yeah, and I think you guys don't have quite the what I'm understanding about Europe is that you guys are experiencing forced diversity, where whoever's in charge is pushing people of different groups together, which is exactly the opposite of sort of freedom of congregation. We have some different ways that we word that here in the U.S., but essentially, why can't you pick who you hang out with? You as a government are going to tell me who I have to hang around. That's never going to be okay with anyone. And when that starts coming, that's going to help you guys push back even more.
Yeah, I definitely think it does. And if we can get into the diversity thing later, I think it's a disastrous thing, but I think we'll just have to see the consequence of it. It's no use talking to people who don't see it, don't understand it. But I think, yeah, I think what's happening now and the difference between these turning points, I've taken a while to get into, is I think we forced this one. I think like the public did. And I think there are a lot of rich guys, influential guys trying to ride it now because they probably don't have a choice. Whereas I think the other turning point, the entire, what you would call it, whatever you want to call it, the woke gender ideology, like racial Marxism or whatever,
social Marxism.
Happen. Yeah, that didn't happen by the people. That was pushed by
No,
someone else.
That's top down, and generally those programs don't work. The best changes in any society come from the bottom up.
I feel that's what's happening now because of how it was pushed, and that's why I think I really think that guys like Zuckerberg were actually afraid. They were seeing like the guillotine, like I really think that's that's what's happening.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'll tell you this. This is going to help you if you have this in the back of your head. Are you a sports fan? Do you understand American football, John?
I'm not a big on American football, but I'm a big sports fan. Yeah.
Okay, so pick whatever sport you want. If like here in the U.S., football is the biggest thing, right? So a quarterback is the most important guy on the offense. He's kind of the high dollar guy, the face of the organization, runs the whole offense. Well, a lot of times you'll get into what's called a quarterback controversy, where, all right, there's two guys on the team who both are reasonably good. And you as a coach, you are best suited to take the guy that you know should not be the main guy and start him for a game. And let everybody see how maybe bad he is, how many mistakes he makes, how the guys won't play for him, or whatever the issue is. That you're at practice every day. You know who the best guy is. You know that. But the people out there, they don't. So sometimes it's best for a situation to put the backup in for a while. We'll let everyone watch them fail. And then you don't have a quarterback controversy anymore. And then no one's going to question your starter anymore, and you can go on with your life. And I think that's what we're seeing here in the U.S. And we've spent the last 16 years really under the Obama administration, essentially pushing all these agendas that you're talking about. and we watched them fail. So the backup has been playing this whole time, and it's been a shit show. So all right, let's get the grown-ups back in charge. You guys had your chance. You shit the bed. It's over. All right. So hopefully that's what happens there. You can have a little bit of confidence in that, John, that when those policies come out, people will see how bad they are and nobody will ever go back to them. So that's the only upside. It's just how much damage is going to happen between now and then, right?
I think that's a fantastic analogy. I think it's unfortunate that it's so costly, but perhaps it was necessary.
Right. Yeah. And again, maybe it is necessary because it'll, like I said, it'll keep it from ever happening again, at least for a generation or so, till people forget, right?
But in your near environment and those that you interact with, what do you feel that either boys or young men or even just grown men, what do you feel that like they are lacking the most to take that step and like how do you say be the best version of themselves? Like what's the first step that you find that they're lacking? There's no magic formula, just like what's the one thing that they all lack at the start?
And I'm going to call it confidence. It's an incredibly general term. It's not, it doesn't really do it justice, but this phrase probably will help. I often tell men, and I publicize this phrase, that you do not need their permission to be their father. You don't need their permission to lead your community. You don't need their permission to change the world. You also don't need their appreciation for it. Okay. So that's what's missing is guys understanding that you've got to do this, even though no one's asking you to, and even though no one is probably going to appreciate it until long after. Okay. So that's what it is. We'll call it a lack of confidence or maybe a lack of initiative, a lack of understanding of really what your job is, what your role is as a man. I'm going to go back to the football analogy. Being a man is an awful lot like being an offensive lineman. These are the big, strong guys up front that are doing the blocking and opening the holes and protecting the passer. And they don't get a lot of publicity. You're not going to see them on the big screen unless they make a mistake.
Yeah.
And essentially their jobs are to make everyone else's job easier. That's what your job is as a man. You got big, strong shoulders, a strong back, and it is your duty to do these things. And the only people that are ever going to pat you on the back for it are other men who recognize your strength and other men who respect you. And even that's going to be unusual because they're going to be so focused on their own pursuit, right? But so absent that, if you want appreciation and permission, you got to give it to yourself. So that's what's missing. Like I said, guys, you don't need their permission and you don't need their appreciation, but you do have to do it.
That sounds an awful lot like something that if you don't have the foundation to get that started, that's it can be a rough.
You'll never get it.
Yeah, it's a rough path to get there.
Right. And again, that's why, I see that lacking. And that was the impetus for Reviving Masculinity. Now it's just a book, and man, it can never replace having a great father. But at least it's an outline. At least you're starting to think in the right way, and maybe then you'll take it from there, right? But that's it. Yeah, you can't replace that good solid role model in your life. Maybe it was a great uncle or a coach or something like that, or a combination. Usually, like for me, I had a great dad, had great uncles, great coaches. All of them together created this vision of what a man is supposed to be, and that's what I've stepped into. But like you said, so many guys don't have that, so they're starting from a lower point than we are. Doesn't mean you can't get to where you need to be, though, right? You still can decide that that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, this is the more I think about it too, the more it makes sense because like a grown man should not be looking at someone else, asking their like seeking their approval and stuff like that. That's what
Right.
what a boy does.
That's exactly right. And then you're coming on to another thing here, a lack of a rite of passage. Okay, I spoke with a guy named Simon Smart several years ago about rites of passage. We don't have them. I mean, you get your driver's license, you turn 18. I mean, there are these certain sort of milestones, but you don't earn them. They just happen. Okay. And if you don't have older men choosing to start treating you like a man, then why in the world would you ever act like one? It's so attractive to continue to act like a boy and just feed your needs and do what you want and do things you like and make money for yourself and get with the wrong women. And like all of that seems kind of fun and almost sexy. It's all over the internet, right? That's what guys are doing. That's attractive. This other path, it really isn't. It doesn't really reward you until later on. It's much longer, like your rewards for it are just farther down the road. So we have to, and this is a big thing, this is a big ask, I realize this, but around 12, 13, a boy's got to start to be treated differently, which is going to mean he better act differently and have different responsibilities and understand that he's no longer looking within. He's got to be focusing without. My job is to help people. First, you build your strength, right? As a man, first you build your power. First, you become as strong and as good as you can be. And then that's useless if you don't use it to help anybody. You got to give it away. You got to find ways to role model, ways to coach, ways to, and a good man like you, John, even you walking into a room, there are people in there looking at you going, I want to be like that guy. Little things like that, all of them, they matter. Without us, no one will know how to be us, right? So all of that has to happen, and it begins at home.
Yeah, it's such a fantastic point about why it's so important for fathers to build up their sons and make them confident, to praise them when the time is there to, as you say, that's when they start to feel like they can do this on their own. And that's I think that's the first step. You have to feel like you can, even if you or at least believe that you're free to fail, but try.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be everything all at once, right? I mean, just pick one thing. Hey, I'm going to start working out. That's the easiest thing. It's the most accessible. It's the thing you're most in control of, right? Nobody else controls what you eat and what you do with your body. That's you. So you can do that. And that's going to make you stronger, build your confidence. Like Mark Zuckerberg, going to add some testosterone to your life. It's going to start to change some things. And from there, you can branch out and try different things, getting into a little bit more accountability, owning when you make mistakes, starting to be a little more generous with your time, with your knowledge. But you got to find some place to start and go from there, right?
Yeah, I also always say that the best place to make like I have a son who's 26 and well, he's turning
Good for you.
26, and
You're a lucky man.
I'm a very lucky man. I have 3 daughters as well, and
Even
I
luckier.
truly believe that the best way for me to make the world better for them is to make better men, to be honest. Like that's, I think, safety, everything comes down to that.
Who doesn't benefit from good men out there? Everyone gains from that. Everyone does. I had this conversation. I'm sure you're familiar with Jack Donovan. Wrote a great book called The Way of Men. It's sort of the base for lots of guys who go on this journey. And I asked him that question specifically: who stands to gain from weakening men? And his answer was awesome. And I'm not going to do it justice because he's an artist, man. The guy's good with words. He said, if you want to have a decent country, nobody will. But if you are an oligarch or if you're in tremendous power, of course it benefits you. You don't have anyone who's ever going to push back, and you have unlimited power and you can do whatever you want to. And I thought that was a great point.
I really do. I really think there is like I'm just going to touch on this a little bit because I truly do think that there is a plot or conspiracy, because no one this cannot, such a concentrated effort all around the world, it cannot happen like genuinely. It cannot. That's my
you're
belief.
right. It seems like there must be a plan behind it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's so organized. It's so big. Like I don't think any movement could come to this agreement or like do this naturally. I think it can't evolve like that.
Yeah, I would agree as well, because there is no, like you said, you use the word naturally. There are no natural positive end results of any such movement. But again, the back end of that is you don't poke the bear. Okay, you shouldn't kick the damn hornet's nest, or because these are men now. When it comes right down to it, bigger than you, stronger than you, more powerful than you are, testosterone, all those things haven't gone away over the last 200 years. Yeah, technology has ramped up at an unbelievable rate, but our genetics haven't changed. We have not evolved in 200 years. Maybe we have some new ideas to think about, but genetically, we're the same animals we ever were. Okay, and that savagery is still there. We are all, as men, descended from killers. You are descended from victorious violence. Your ancestors fought to gain you access to food, to water, to sexual reproduction, to making sure your kids stayed safe. They fought to the death against animals, against other humans. You are not descended from the losers of those battles, John. You're descended from the winners. The losers died. Okay, that was natural selection. We still have that in our DNA, that savagery, that animalistic nature. It's there. So, and it's right under the surface. We might be a little more domesticated now, but that's not who we are at our core. So Yeah. Push back on men, try to push down men at your own risk, right?
And I think it all came down to like it's been done for so long, and now it's become so blatant that I used the term, and I saw it fantastic post about it, and I reposted it. The men who just want to be left alone being the most dangerous force in the world.
You
And
know, have, have you seen the American movie Rambo, First
oh yeah,
Blood? With,
oh
okay, so
yes,
there's a guy who
more than
just
once, more than
all he
twice.
wanted was something to eat. He wanted to be left alone. He
Yeah,
wanted something to eat. And look what happened. You fuck around, you find out. Okay. And there's a lot of guys out there like that. Most of them. And people are convinced that they don't exist because they're not on social media. Or if they are, they're not saying anything because that's part of their whole MO, right? Don't mess with those guys. I agree with you.
yeah. When I've started to see even my like younger brother who's like always been no, you're just being stupid, because I'm always
Mm.
right, obviously, when I speak about these things, but
Of
even
course.
when
So am I.
he's
What a coincidence.
yeah, it's a gift, man. But
Right.
when even he is starting to see patterns and just figuring out something's wrong, you really know that like people are waking up, and they don't even have to believe about some grand conspiracy. Just a question, what's going on. That's enough.
Yeah. Yeah. See which way the wind's blowing. And, in order to stomach it, I several years ago, and it's a constant fight, but several years ago adapted this attitude that, hey, um, just because they have been sort of coddled and persuaded by the propaganda that's out there, and when I say they, I mean folks who disagree with you and I, just because they happen to have that woke agenda or believe that men are bad or whatever it is, they are still our responsibility. Okay, I say it this way: on our side, they're still Americans. Men, our job is to protect and to provide. Okay, that's it. It all comes right down to that. And generally, that's always been women and children, right? And regardless of what crazy ideas they have, again, you don't need their permission to protect and provide for them. And now it's going to be a whole lot of modern men as well are going to also need to be protected and provided for. Ultimately, you have to take that responsibility. It's part of that. It's part of the job. So when you start looking at it that way, and then you look at this angle as well, that what an amazing thing for them. What a luxury that they have the opportunity to talk shit and dislike and push down on men, when it's men who created the society that you live in that is so safe that you don't have to worry about
Yeah.
any real threats because we are protecting you. Okay. That's what are men like us, right? So what a compliment indeed that they have the ability to do that. Now, you don't need to insult us, but what a compliment that they are able to develop these ridiculous ideas like socialism and liberalism that aren't going to help. Okay. What a great idea that they think that stuff's possible, but it's not even it's not even possible to think about it without what men have done. Right.
I think it's a very obvious when you look to the countries like Afghanistan with the Taliban, like where
Right.
women's right they don't exist if men don't allow it to exist. And I don't mean
Mm-hmm.
that to speak that in like a tyrant's way. I'm just saying this is the clearest example you will ever get about how men are not bad people. Like that's I think
Yeah. I mean,
you'll never get a
certainly not
clearer
Western
example.
men, right?
Yeah. And what I mean by that, yeah, exactly. What I mean by that is when a group of people has the ability to easily push you down and oppress you, but they choose instead to make you their equal. Like I think that shows the true character, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I don't know if I could have said it any better. Well, well done, John. You hit the nail on the head.
And when I started my page, the Instagram page, started it in Icelandic. It was originally just meant for guys who needed someone to talk to, who are pretty much suicidal, because there's an
Mm.
epidemic of that in the Nordic countries, especially.
Here as well.
Oh, really? It's so high in the U.S. It's terrible.
It's like four times the likelihood. So women are more likely to attempt suicide, but men are successful when they do it. So there's 4 men who kill themselves for every 1 woman who successfully kills herself. That's what it is roughly here in the U.S. right now. It's a pretty big gulf.
Yeah, we're just better at it. No, I think it's important to be able to joke about everything. I mean, you have
Of
to
course.
you have to.
The only way we're gonna, man, if we took this stuff too seriously, we'd be lining up to do the same things. So
Yeah,
yeah, for
exactly.
sure. You gotta have some levity.
And uh, then it just grew from there because it was too much demand for me to keep up. So I started to think like, okay, I can't do this without like this affecting me. Thankfully, I had my family backing me up and everything morally. But then
Hmm.
the idea came to me that I have to try something else. So I started to think like preventative instead of like I do the other thing occasionally. What got you started into this? Like what was the kind of uh, point where you decided to get into this?
It was a personal thing. I got divorced in 2012, and that was a pretty dysfunctional relationship. I'm not laying any blame on anybody, but it didn't go very well, and I got into another relationship. And that was a very good one. I was with her for 5 or 6 years, and then that dissipated, and here I am north of 40, and I'm single, and I don't have the family I've always wanted, and I had to take a hard look in the mirror. Like, what the heck am I doing wrong here? What's going
Yeah.
on? And certainly I didn't want to ever be in that situation again. I wanted to be able to walk out of any relationship I was ever in, knowing that I did everything I could do and that I was the best man I could be for her, for the community, all the things that I mentioned earlier. So I started just reading, and I found Jordan Peterson, and I found the Joe Rogan podcast, and I started reading all these other books that started making sense to me, and listening to these other podcasts that made sense to me. And again, because of my background in education, it just made sense to report out what I knew, to kind of do a report on it. So I wrote my first book. It's called The Jossman Method. I didn't show it to you, but what that did, I outlined a 12-point system that I use in my life. So I've got 12 different things I score myself on every day. It's things like getting a workout, calling my mom or dad, helping somebody, volunteering. I know that those are universal good things. So anytime I do one of those, it can do nothing but help me. So I score myself on how many of those I get every day, just to make sure I knew I was being a good man and I was doing the best I could, and I was improving myself in every way I possibly could. And so I wrote the book about that point system. And then my publisher is like, you need to do something to publicize the book. So I started the podcast, which led to me having awesome conversations with tremendous men like yourself. And I kept learning and learning and learning and learning. And after a couple of years, I'm like, man, I got way more than enough to write another book. So that's how it's gone for me. I've learned and learned, and then kind of reported out what I know in with the books. And but yeah, that's what started it. Was just taking a hard look at myself. I was in a situation I didn't want to be in. Like I said, north of 40, no family, all by myself. I'm like, how did I get here? What the fuck happened? And so I had to figure that out and get myself where I wanted to be. But yeah, that's what started it. How about you? You mentioned a little bit about that, but what's got you still rolling?
My kids. And to be honest, I really like being able to be in the position to help others since isn't it amazing how you have to fall flat on your face to realize like the importance of the little things, like the
Yeah, we
struggle.
as men.
Yeah, like the struggle that if you've never struggled, you don't know yourself. You don't know what you can pull through. You don't know what you like. I wouldn't say I've had a tough life by any means, but I still had to. I made things difficult for myself. Like I said, I was telling you earlier with the
Right.
just how entitled I was. I was an entitled
Mhm.
piece of shit. Like I
Yeah,
wasn't a
sure.
bad person. I thought because I was so smart and gifted that life owed me something, and that's just not how it works.
Oh, that's just your age, man. You know that now, I'm sure. You
Yeah,
can't get mad at the younger, dumber you for things that the older, wiser you now knows. It's unrealistic, right?
and that's why I think I see so many people that they just want to talk down to people who haven't gotten this epiphany yet, and I think it's more important that if they are approachable, you can usually see immediately if they are approachable. And
Instantly.
yeah,
Yep,
I
instantly.
mean, I worked as a prison guard, and you can see there's no better place to learn how to judge when someone can be approached, and you can maybe make a difference if you approach it correctly.
Hmm.
And
I would imagine. Yeah.
yeah, and that's why I think that's why I have an easy time seeing it, and I really love being able to do that. And like I've lost count of how many guys I talked down from suicide, and even if it's really rough, it's really rewarding. Like
Oh, good for you. What an amazing thing to be able to know falling asleep at night. Good for you, John.
Well, it's I've lost many people to suicide, and something that I kept thinking like, I know obviously we don't blame ourselves or shouldn't blame ourselves for that, but I still think, what can I do to prevent it, and not
Hmm.
prevent what already happened, but like just make things a little better for someone else then.
And see that attitude, good on you for that. That's so rare. It's so easy to complain, but it takes a lot more effort. But as you know, far more rewarding to step in and start to make a change. So that's awesome that those people have you.
I want to, I really want to ask, because I have a very strong opinion about it. What do you think of the red pill movement?
I think it's how to spit it out. Red pill is just feminism for men, really. I think that there's a tremendous amount of knowledge there,
Yeah.
and I think as a young man, it will help you a ton to know those things. But you got to stop short of letting those ideas turn you against women. You got to stop short of letting those things stunt you from being the good man that you and I are describing here today. You can't let those ideas make you then blame them for what and who they are. It's exactly the same as, like I said, as the feminism movement blaming men for who and what they are, even though we all benefit each other, right? So yeah, I think it's valuable, but so many people get stuck there, they get mired in it, and they don't mature out of it. I would guess you're probably somewhere close to that thing.
Yeah, I'm very close to that, and I've actually said that it's just the other side of the coin of radical feminism, because
Yeah, for sure.
you can really see that, back in the day or whatever, they actually did come to, like, they had the right ideas, but I feel that they came to all the right all the wrong solutions. I think that's a huge part of why guys like Andrew Tate, and I don't know if you know who, like, types of Fresh and Fit are or
Yep,
were.
I know those guys. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's why because they, half of what they say, they have in common that they're tremendous talkers,
Hmm.
and half of what they say is just about gospel, but it's the other half that you then take that is such poison, I think, for young men.
Well, and you have to, of course, then consider or not the audience, but like Fresh and Fit, for example. I mean, who are their guests? They're a bunch of dingbat 22-year-old girls who are on OnlyFans.
Yeah,
Of course, like they're the far out example. That's not what women are, man. I mean,
exactly.
that's just a tiny percentage of what women are. If that's what you think, the extent of what you think women are, you're doomed, bro. Like that's not it, right? It's not going to go. So I think that's teed up in the wrong way, and I think it, like Fresh and Fit for sure, definitely hurts. Like a young man could watch that and easily get charmed by it, right?
Yeah,
Not you and I. I mean, we could see through that stuff because we have enough life experience and confidence to get through that. But yeah, Tate, I think, is the same thing. I think he makes a lot of great points, but doesn't have to be such an asshole about it. I'm learning to do that myself. I mean, I know the research that I'm doing, and I know that what I'm saying is accurate, whether it's on social media or in my books. But I try to package it correctly. I mean, there's just tremendous value there between people that have a little bit of diplomacy. Now, being a diplomat has never been my strong suit, but I got to try to be aware of that, and I don't see that. I don't see that 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 choice, that desire for understanding, that desire for connection. When I look at and listen to the red pill guys, I see them trying to pigeonhole people and push them away, and that separates men and women, and that doesn't help anybody. We're trying to get people together here. That's the whole point. We're best when we're together.
I think one of the most blatant examples to use is when they're when they're saying stuff around along the lines of, you have to keep, like, no, let your woman know she's replaceable. Like, yeah, that's just
That's not
such
going to
a
work, man.
poisonous attitude to me.
Oh man.
You're going to this borders on mental abuse, if not, if it simply isn't mental abuse. Like,
Definitely. And if you look at it from the other side, if I were with a woman who was telling me every day that I was replaceable,
yeah,
there wouldn't be a lot of days.
no,
Okay. Those days would end. Like that'd be the end of it. Like, no, we're committing to each other, and that's that. Hell or high water. Richard Poor, all that stuff. I very much agree. Yeah, what let's separate it this way. If you just want to get laid and be the guy with the most notches on his bedpost in your fraternity house, yeah, red pills, it'll help you. You will get laid. Like, it'll help you. But it's going to be women who are, got daddy issues, and they got all kinds of problems and low self-esteem and low self-confidence. And if you want to have a quality marriage and relationship and a family, no woman is going to ever deal with all that stuff. And it's not because she knows about it or she's going to smell out your tactics. She's just going to think you're an asshole.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help anybody, right? Doesn't help anybody.
I like to use the example of celebrities when it comes to this, because this constant sleeping around is only truly attractive to guys who haven't done it, or can't do it either
Probably.
way. Yeah, one of
Yeah, I
the
would
two.
agree. I would agree.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because you can see celebrities eventually, they may start to get into Hollywood, everything's new and exciting, but eventually you will see those guys trying to get, women, trying to get a woman in their life. Why would they do that if the single life of sleeping around is so rewarding? It isn't. It just creates a
Exactly.
gaping hole in your chest, and it leaves nothing.
Oh, it's awful. I mean, if you ask me, hey man, let's go to the bar tomorrow night and there's going to be all these chicks there, you'll definitely get laid. I would tell you no, man. It doesn't appeal to me. It isn't. And I mean, I had my day, don't get me wrong. I was in college too. But yeah, I've got no desire for that. It's hollow, it's empty. You feel worse afterwards. No, thank you. Right. And until you learn that, like you said, those are guys who haven't done it. Once you've done it, you're like, hell no. Right. That's it.
Yeah, either haven't done it or can't do it. That's the
Exactly. Chant is the worst one, right? Those
Yeah,
guys are
that's the worst
fewer
part.
options.
That's when we start to steer into incel territory, like real incels. I've actually dealt with a few
Yeah.
of those. They've actually approached me after like, I think approximately once every 3 months or so, I make a post telling people my line is open if someone wants to talk, and people very often take me up on that, for which I'm very
Hmm.
grateful that they do, because someone who does that, he truly needs it. Like, he is usually on the edge somewhere.
Yeah, for a man in particular, admitting you need help is pretty hard. You
Yeah.
mentioned earlier how guys have to crash and burn before they start to improve, and I think that this is another example of that. You and from the positive end as well, right? So when I get a compliment, when I have somebody, a man say, listen, hey, your work really helped me. I see that as like a 50-to-1 ratio. I probably helped 50 people for every one who said something to me. And I think on the negative end, I bet you that ratio is higher of people who could use your help but have not reached out to ask. It's probably more like 200-to-1. Because again, men don't want to admit they need help. It's a very male thing. And I'm not saying it's bad, but it is. Yeah. So if you get one guy, there's probably a couple of hundred that could use your help too. And that's sad, but it is that is what it is.
It's very true. I'm also of the opinion that incels they are tougher by far than the suicidal types, because they are so angry. They are like, and I'm not talking
Okay.
about the watered down word of incel that people throw around so casually these days. It annoys me
Right.
that they do,
As an
because it's a
insult.
serious thing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah. I'm very interested in that because that's not a crowd I've come across too much. So
yeah,
it makes sense. So they would be very angry. Tell me more about that if you would.
they're very difficult to sway. I kind of keep count. I always do. I do it subconsciously. I don't like write it down anywhere. I just have a lot of numbers in my head.
Mhm.
I've dealt with 12 of them, and I can say that I unincelled five. But
Nice.
it took it. One of them, I've spoken with him for 2.5 years. That's how long it took. Like, two and a half
Wow.
years of just talking, and like, not every day, every minute of every day or anything, but this
Hmm.
guy really, and he really, really stepped up. Like, he hated women,
Mm.
not because they were such bad people, but because he would say, like, he wasn't looking for sex. He wanted intimacy. Not it wasn't
That's
sex. You can
that's way
get,
harder to
yeah,
find. Way tougher to find.
because you can get sex anywhere, and he
It's
blamed
true.
women on it because he considered himself a good guy. He was a good guy. It was just, this was just something he couldn't have, and it was killing him. because he would watch,
Mm.
as he said, like all these assholes, women fall for these
Right.
assholes, would constantly hurt them.
Hmm. Hmm.
And he was wondering why he wasn't having any success. And I was telling him, they can sense this within you. They can sense your
Mm.
bitterness. You're never going to
Yeah.
have any success until you get this
Yeah.
out of it, then out of yourself.
Yeah. Well, think about what you're doing there, John. I mean, you were fathering that guy, and it took you 2.5 years, but how long did it take your dad to get a lot of these messages through your head? Um, that's what he was lacking, I'm sure, or at least a quality fathering. I'm curious what, just had conversations with them. Were there any really moments where the lights came on? Any epiphanies? I mean, how did that develop?
Well, one of them is actually dating now, but the which is
Awesome.
basically a miracle. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. I told him that like I told him so many times like you're not ready, man. You're not ready for
Mm.
to work on someone else. You have nothing to give right now. Like, you
Mm.
think you do, but you don't. And I think that's so important. Like, do you have something to give as a man, or are you still
Yeah,
absorbing? I think,
no doubt. So that's why, again, I'm going back to plugging my book here,
yeah,
but
go ahead.
what we got there are a bunch of habits, all right? And these are things that are going to develop things in your life that make you worthwhile to yourself, of course, but definitely to someone else. Um, you got to understand that. Like, that's how any relationship goes. Like you and I, John, we have things in common, and we can have a great conversation, enjoy each other's company. And so then we have that to offer. I've got my research, you've got yours. We're learning from each other. That's how all relationships go. If you're not bringing anything, and I hate using this phrase, but if you're not bringing anything to the table, well, sort of what's your value for a person, and what's wrong with them saying, no, you're not for me, at that point. So you've got to have experiences, things that, hey, this is what I do at my job, let me tell you about it. This is what's my experience in college, whatever it is. You've got to build yourself. Like I said earlier, you've got to be the best you can be, and develop yourself in a lot of areas in order to have something to offer to someone else, in order to be able to improve someone else's life, because that's really what it's about. Like men, for example, we make friends based on two different things. Number one, are you loyal? Do I believe that you have my back when I need you to? And number two, do you make me laugh? That's
Yeah,
the two
yeah.
two things that are very valuable, right? And so that's something that someone offers to you. It's an economy. It's a relationship economy. I didn't make the rules. It's just what it is, right? And so it's going to be that way in a female relationship too. It's not that much different. Yeah. So, like you said, build yourself. Bring something in.
It's one of the big things about it is, as you said, it is the lack of a father in a boy's life. And
Hmm.
what what you said earlier about this part of you having to step up at a certain point, your father is the one who's supposed to get you to that point. I think that was a fantastic point about that, and the importance of fathers in general. A lot of people
No
don't
doubt.
have that, and
Most don't. Most
no,
don't here in the U.S. Most do not.
most don't. And we can take. I criticize the Icelandic school system a lot because it's very feminized. It's very feministic, and
Ours is too.
yeah, and a lot of it is filled by good people who treat boys differently. They have good intentions, but a lot of Icelandic material and teaching methods, and how would you say, they are using what they want to think is preventative things for boys. What they want to do is to make them not into perpetrators, not into someone who abuses.
Right. But they do that in the wrong way. They do it by trying to, it's like the metaphor of the sheep, right? So a wolf comes in, and kills a few sheep. And so the sheep all decide, well, it wasn't, it was the teeth of the wolf that killed us. So we should all remove our teeth. So I think that's what the well-meaning, as you said, educators are doing. They're trying to make it so that boys can't harm anyone. And what that does is you create these eunuchs, these nutless, sort of not fully formed women, essentially, with beards that are just for looks. And that doesn't help anybody. The real solution is to help them develop their masculinity and realize that their potential for violence, for example, and that's chapter 2 of my second book. It's actually incredibly useful. The more you develop that, the less likely you are to ever use it. But it's there when you need it. And when you need it, the definition of need it is to protect someone else. right? If you're a guy who sees a man raping a woman and you pull out your phone, you're not a man in my book. Okay, you get the fuck in there and take care of that shit. Do everything you can, because it's at least 2-on-1, right? And even on a big scary man, it's still 2-on-1. You call the police later if you can. If you get a chance, get out of 911, drop your phone. But you have to understand what your duty is, and if you haven't developed that, if you don't understand how to compete and when your time is to step up and commit to violence, you are useless in that situation. And I don't want to fall asleep like that, man. I don't want to believe that. I don't want to go to sleep going, man, I wish there was something I could have done. Well, there was something you could do, right? And so schools are trying to take, like you said, take all that away. And it's just, first of all, it's impossible. It's an exercise in futility. And second, how terrible for boys. You know, think if the schools were trying to take away femaleness from girls, trying to get them to always act like boys. Oh my God, would people be up in arms over that? And do you want girls to act like boys? I don't.
No.
I want them to act like girls and become great women. That's what I want. So it stands to reason. And, you know, a lot of it's just misunderstanding. I mean, you know, I'm never going to understand, neither are you, what it is like to carry a human life inside me. Okay, I'm never going to understand that. And that being the case, it stands to reason that there are things about men that women are never going to understand. And that's okay. And that's normal. And that's good. You know, I always use the bully sort of metaphor where, you know, your kid comes home from school, your son comes home from school, he's being bullied. Well, mom, she's going to want to go down to the principal's office and give him a stern finger wagging and call the other boy's parents and all that stuff. And in her mind, she's protecting her son and she's keeping him safe and doing all the things that moms do. And that's great. But you as a dad, you're going to be like, come on downstairs, son. Get those hands up. Let me show you how to do this. Because you know that when he's not going to have mom and the principal around his whole life. So he better learn how to deal with this shit on his own, or he's never going to respect himself, let alone be respected by other men and be of use to women and children, right?
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. I like to say that women's biggest strength is that they're not men. And why would you want to, why would you want to steer away from that? And I think when you try to create a man or turn a boy into someone who is not going to be an abuser, what you end up doing is what you mentioned. You turn him into this type of eunuch, but he will have the desire of a man, and then he will become bitter when what he was promised works. Yeah, he will turn very bitter, and he was promised this by like the women in his life. Hey, this isn't working. Like no woman wants me, and then that's when he gets mad. That's when he gets bitter because it's not working. But he has those desires, and those will never go away.
Yeah, I say it this way: single moms raise boys that become men that even they wouldn't date.
Yeah,
right. Because they don't know any better. They don't know any better. They can't do it. It's okay. There's things you can't do as women. There's things we can't do as men. It's just the way it is.
And I hate when women take this as some sort of a jab at women, because
it's not.
Everyone knows that they do it out of love, but it's womanly love. It's not fatherly love.
You need both. You got to have both. And it's not just boys. You know this as well. I mean, I can spout out statistics like crazy about what happens to girls when they don't have a father at home. I mean, the typical, the cliche of the stripper on the pole has daddy issues, right? It's true. That's the way it is. Without those rules, without the, you know, women do a great job of raising children, but men raise adults. So there's got to be that handoff. There's a point in there. I spoke with a man that I taught with a long time ago. Told me this. He's like, you know, as a dad, your job when they're little, you're just around them, really. But when they get to 10, 12, 13, now you're a huge part of their lives, and mom becomes less so. And that handoff, that transition has to happen. In so many cultures across the world, across time, that's the way it's gone. When boys reach a certain age, they go off with the men. And as it should be, and we're not doing that as much anymore.
This is never demonstrated better than at fatherless homes, because when the boys start to go out, they will become a reflection of the men around them, and if those are bad men, a mother will not be able to turn this around, or it will take. It's very rare. It's very difficult for her, because he is looking for that masculine role model, and if it's not,
he's dying for it.
Yeah, dying for it. And if it's not at
Yeah.
home, he will find it somewhere else.
Yeah, and when you run out of actual humans around you, you're left with what you see on screens, man.
Yeah,
You're left with what you see on your phone, and man, the men that you see on screens right now are dog shit.
yeah,
I mean, they're I did just wrote a post the other day about the rise of Homer Simpson. I don't know if you're familiar with the Simpsons cartoon here. It's an
yeah.
American television show. Well, that the first Simpsons episode was about 1989. Right around that same time was the beginning of the third wave of feminism, which was when equality had been achieved. They wanted to start the zero sum game of pushing men down in order to raise women up, at least at the elite levels, right? And it's no coincidence that now instead of having Andy Griffith at home, now you got Homer Simpson as your role model, as your example of what a father is, a bumbling, overweight doofus who's got no respect anywhere he goes. Even his children insult him and don't respect him. It's not what a man is, and that's really what men have been. They've become these again, I'm talking about on screens here, these self-deprecating, weak, mom runs the family, happy wife, happy life. Oh, it's up to her, that sort of thing. It's not what you're supposed to be, man. And that certainly isn't equality, the thing that the feminist agenda loves to talk about. Equality, it's not equality at all. Um, so yeah, if you're looking at that and thinking that's what a man should be, you're gonna be unhappy. It's just what it is.
I really find this so obvious when I'm working. I've actually worked as a kindergarten teacher. I worked as a teacher.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've had seminars where I had some young boys that were very difficult to deal with for the for the teachers, that is. But I had
Mhm.
them in the summertime, and this is I don't know, humble brag or whatever. But I was
Go
told
ahead.
that
Your
yeah,
show.
I was told that I would last a week because there was this nightmare class that I had that was
Hmm. Hmm.
actually enrolled in the summer camp that I ran. But
Hmm.
after a week, I literally had them, well, not literally, I had them eating out of my hand. Like, it's so easy to deal with these boys if you know how. Like, make it known that you don't tolerate bullshit. And
Hmm.
when
Hmm.
you see that they have a lot of energy, you give them in like it's a small
Something
town
to
that
do.
I had. It was a small town with a lot of trees and stuff. So I gave
Hmm.
them a wheelbarrow and made them go pick weeds until they filled it. They came back and
Awesome.
they were just like angels for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
They wore
Yeah.
themselves out.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have recess, a break during the day. Geez, I can remember when I was a really young kid, we had two recesses during the day. We had a morning and a PM recess. Just go out and run around and get it all out of you, and then you can sit and think and learn. And I would have rather been a teacher then, right, than at the time when I was doing it. Um, yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. And just your masculine energy, just your deep voice and the size of your body and the way that you handle things and they understand that, hey, no, this is the law. Okay, this guy's not gonna he's not gonna take any shit, and not in like a terrible way. You're not gonna be a dick to him, but
Yeah.
hey, they're dying for that. I mean, even teenage boys in particular. I taught high school, and man, they loved it. I can't tell you. I had the same situation so many times, John. That's why I smiled when you said that. Um, I'd get a group of kids or even a specific boy where I'd hear from these female teachers, "Oh, you can't. He's awful. You get in my class and they're fine."
Yeah.
I understand that you understand things like give them some respect, give them some responsibility, give them some activity. The problem's over, right? See, these women, the female teachers couldn't handle them because they didn't act like girls and they didn't know how to. And again, no fault of theirs, but that you need both. You got to have both. Hey,
Also remember when I was teaching school, there was this one guy in the final grade. It's 10th grade in Iceland. I don't know what it is in the US. 15
We
years
have
old.
12.
Yeah, he had big behavioral problems. And one time we actually just went into the gym that the school used and we wrestled. Just as I'm
Perfect.
just taking an example. Like I won't say I didn't use fists exactly, but I kind of beat the shit out of him in a very good way.
Sure.
Like it wasn't
Right,
violent,
right,
but just
right.
this immediately you had respect,
Hmm.
because he knew he had respect before, but something changed there because like I was his teacher, and he knew that he couldn't fuck around, and
Hmm.
that something just changed.
Well, there's that piece of it. And there's also what I'm sure happened after that. And that's that you didn't look at him any differently. So that's a young guy who, much like your incels, there are these people who have this power over them, the women, right, that he can't have sex with. And he's got no way to control that. And they probably are very disrespectful to him. They don't value him, right? Whereas you had that session with him, but you continued to value him after that, and you continued to respect him, and you treated him no differently. And that probably was the first time he'd ever experienced that. Well, oh wait, this guy can beat me up, but doesn't, and still treats me well. Like, so you were probably a real gem to him, a real like Easter egg, a thing he'd never seen before.
This is one of the, as you were saying earlier, the men who have the most capacity for violence among other men. I like to say that's a huge, huge factor in this, because everyone can be violent towards someone who's weaker. But in a
Mm-hmm.
group of men, if you are capable of being violent to them, you know you're probably kind of a badass. And
For sure.
yeah, I learned this when I did MMA. I think that's why this is so important. The guys that are the best at MMA, the guys who can beat everyone's ass, they are the least
Mm-hmm.
violent, most friendly people you will ever meet.
Right. Well, you learn how much damage you can do to someone, and you don't ever want to have to do that. It's a terrible feeling when you injure someone or hurt somebody, or even just make them feel discouraged. Embarrass them. You don't want to do that. You don't want to create negativity. For sure. Yeah. The more able you are to be violent, the less likely you are to use it. That's a universal.
I think it also has a lot to do with two other things. I think is the confidence that comes with knowing you can do that. You don't feel the need to
Mm-hmm.
prove it. And also it's the learning curve, because you were once the small guy. That's the good thing.
Yes.
That's what I love about combat sports. You were the
Mm-hmm.
little bitch at one time. And all of
Yeah.
those
Everybody's
guys,
been
yeah,
there.
all of those guys had the chance to hurt you or make you feel small, but they didn't. And
Mhm.
you remember how good that felt, as you were saying earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, just exactly. I like your experience with that young man wrestling him for sure. That's a big piece of it, and the confidence that you exude around other men. Other men pick up on that, so they know. Oh, that's. I think that guy can probably handle his shit. That's why he's so calm and cool all the time. You know what I mean? Like, you can see that on someone. I know that when I'm in a circle of men, I know which guy is the badass, and it's usually the quietest guy. The guy who's running his mouth and talking shit. I'm like, well, I don't have to worry about that guy. Like, no, he's not gonna do anything, right? He's just talking. Like, the guys who are really violent, they keep their mouths shut. They do. Just that's pretty universal.
Look at wife beaters and other weak men
Mm.
who do stuff like this. Put them in a group of 10 other men. They're not going to be they are not the big guy there. They are not the one that everyone's looking to for advice and inspiration. That's not. They are
No,
not those
no,
people.
and I'm gonna go back to to Jack Donovan. Where I just realized I'm wearing one of his shirts that says "Violence is Gold," and I'm sure you're familiar with the essay. It's tremendous. Um, yeah, men judge other men, gauge other men, value other men, to a certain extent at a very base level. What is your value going to be in battle, right? Um, I'm going to have a base level respect for you if I think you can really handle yourself, and I'm going to treat you that way. Um, that's just how it is. That's part of the male thing. Every male interaction, I heard Jordan Peterson talk about this, and he's so right. Every male interaction is underscored by violence, regardless of what it is. Whether you're at work or you're on subway or whatever it is, two guys talking, whatever, you're always, subconsciously sizing that person up and understanding where you stand with them. That's how, as women do not work that way. Because the physical violent threat isn't there between women. I mean, certainly nowhere near the universality that it is for men. Um, yeah, that's a big piece of how men respect each other for sure.
I'm a firm believer in the theory that you size up every man that you meet. You don't do it on purpose. You
Yeah.
don't mean to,
Yeah.
but you are every time in the back of your mind. There's going to be, can I take that guy? I
Or
really
how would
think
I?
that
How
is
would I
there.
attack him?
Yeah.
Right? I didn't spend a whole lot of time doing martial arts, but when I first started, I remember my instructor telling me, "You are going to start doing this. You're going to start when you see a man, you're going to without even thinking about it. Well, that guy's pretty big, so it's going to be leg kicks, or he's real small, so I'm just going to get a hold of him. Like, you're already going to know that. Like, there's things that are going to go through your head, and I still think that way. It's been several years since I was doing that stuff, but yeah, it's just it's part of what it is, and it isn't for me. It's never about I don't like that guy, I'm going after him. It's always like, if something
Yeah.
happens, if
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have to,
It's
if
never
I
the
have to
bad stuff.
protect someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you think when you get a little bit of training under your belt, for sure.
And that's why I think it's so important for men to be among men, just to learn the interactions and be around people who are better than you. I believe if
For
you're the
sure.
best man in the room, you're in the wrong room, if you know what I mean.
For sure. Yeah, I call that the locker room mentality, the locker room philosophy, locker room environment. You learn as a young man so much about what it is to be a grown man by interacting with other boys when there are no adults around. Learning how to understand a hierarchy and understand where do I fit in that hierarchy and how do I want to handle this. And it's the same dynamics going on when you get into an office when you're 25 or 30 or 40. Those same dynamics are in place. I mean, geez, my best friends, we really communicate basically by insulting each other, right? Like, that's how we do it. And if, men, we bond that way. You bond by insulting each other. Of course, we don't really mean it. And of course, on the other side of the coin, women, they bond by complimenting each other, but they don't really mean it, right?
I think it's such a weird thing, especially when women have listened to a couple of very good friends talk to each other. They will like sound like they hate each other, where the fact is like everyone would take a bullet for each other.
That's it. That's
Everyone,
exactly it.
yeah,
I mean, if you look at my group text with my best friends, it's all insults, right? But if any one of them texted, "Hey man, I need you," like, I wouldn't be done reading it. I've dropped the phone.
yeah,
I'd already be in the truck. That's and again, that goes back to what we were talking about: loyalty and humor. So all the insults are the funny, right?
yeah.
Get me laughing, but ultimately it's the loyalty that's the key underlier there.
And I really loved when you said about violence being a constant factor in male communication. I think the
Mhm.
internet has ruined how people talk to each other, because
For sure.
having older brothers, having growing up when I did, I know what I can and can't say. Like if I stepped out of
Mhm.
line, I got punched in the face. It's a simple thing. You know what you can
And
and
that's
can't
okay.
say. Yeah, and that's of course
Yep.
it's everyone should be punched in the face at least once for stepping out of line. Otherwise, you never learn. And
Yep. That's how you find your boundaries that way.
I actually like one of my favorite things is watching videos of guys who've obviously never been punched to the face, like punched in the face, get their first punch. You can just see in their
Oh,
eyes something life-changing just happened, something
yeah.
changed.
You spent your whole life being afraid of this and you just experienced it. It wasn't that bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
It wasn't
also
that
that you
bad.
thought you could get away with saying just
Yeah.
whatever, but now you're face to face with someone who will every man who
Real
has been with other
consequences.
men, you know where the line is, right? Like
No
you know
doubt.
that.
Yeah. And there's a respect thing there for sure. It gets closer to it. The better you know them, the more you can kind of do. And you can watch by their face if it's an issue, you know when to back off. Usually you don't have to get punched anymore, but it's always still out there. In the US, we have the First Amendment to our Constitution is the freedom of speech. And the way that that's worded, and I believe the intentions of our founding fathers, was that you can say whatever you want to about the government, and the government will not come after you for it. So
Yeah.
essentially, you're not going to be in a situation where you're going to be a political prisoner. You're going to be attacked by the government because you don't like the government. That's what the First Amendment is. But here in the U.S., people think, oh, First Amendment, freedom of speech means I can say whatever the hell I want to, and you can't get mad about it. Oh yeah, I can.
Hmm.
There's nothing in the First Amendment about me not knocking your teeth out. Okay, if you come and insult me or tell me how I need to live my life, or you say something to my woman or put your hands on her, I'm gonna drop you quickly. Like, there's not gonna be a hesitation. I'm not gonna warn you. You're going down. That's it. And freedom of speech does not protect that at all. And people think that, oh, freedom of speech. Well, get your ass off the internet. Start interacting with real men. You'll understand that there are some rules here that you're not abiding by. Right?
Yeah, have you ever hung around a group of guys that are not weaker than anything that is weak? You know that if I cross this line, I might win, but things are going to get physical. It's
Yeah, I mean, nobody really wins a fight, right? Dalton said that in Roadhouse very famously, and it's true, man. You're gonna get hurt too. I
Yeah.
mean, you might be the last guy standing, but you're gonna get hurt. You know, similarly, I had a conversation with my buddy's dad a few weeks ago, and we were just talking about getting old, and I think he's 78, something like that, older guy for sure, and I'm like, so what's it like? You know, I was giving him shit about having to pee all the time or whatever. We were just joking around. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
I've known him a long time. And he said, and he very seriously told me, he said, the worst part about getting old is that men do not see you as dangerous anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Sure.
that never occurred to me, but man, it hit me like a ton of bricks that that's going to happen to us, man. At some point, men won't give you that basic respect anymore, and they'll start looking at you, and not in a bad way. They're not going to be dicks to you because you can't defend yourself. They're going to start treating you like a woman or a child again. And man, I hope that never comes. That sounds terrible, right?
I think once we get there, it's good if we've managed to take the role of a mentor to many of them. That will
Hope so.
prevent them from treating
Right.
you like just an old person. And I think that's like the village elder kind of thing. You, instead of being an old guy
Sure.
in a home, that's something I would want instead.
We should all aspire to that, of
Yeah.
course, and that definitely is the role that you and I, I'm sure, will be in. But man, yeah, it just turns my stomach, scares the shit out of me, very frankly, because that, like we said, that undergirds every male relationship, and to have that disappear, yeah. So there's another reason to keep improving yourself and keep getting smarter and keep learning, keep being generous with your time and your knowledge, giving away the strength that you have now as much as you can, so that those people will be there for you when you're older.
This is a fantastic point about yeah, when you see old men, you think of them differently. You don't see them as someone who will hurt you if you step out of line, but more of a mental only thing. It's I'd never even thought about that. That kind of hits like a ton of bricks when you say it. I'd never even
Yeah,
considered it.
yeah, that's coming our way. But like, I love your response to it. Truly, hey, let's be the village elder. Let's be the mentor. Let's be the hero, the guy that earned his respect, right? Earned it long ago, and did things that you young man maybe will never do. You could still continue to inspire from that position. You can still continue to develop and build people. I would like to think that's how it'll go.
It's very important in this day and age that we also teach. I want to touch on something you said earlier. It was about the red pill teaching you to hate women, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have to, on my page, I have to touch on that occasionally because I know I have a couple of people following me that actually occasionally think that just because you make fun of feminists and stuff like that, they think sometimes because they see one thing, they think you're on that side of women are the enemy, blah blah blah. Because I happen to I make a lot of fun of particular kinds of women because I think they deserve it, and make
I do
a
the
lot
same
of fun.
thing, you
Yeah,
know.
and but we have to teach them that women are allies. They are not like
No
vast
doubt.
majority of women are going to be our allies in, and they are on exactly the same page we are. They fear for masculinity as much as we do.
Very much agree. You know, I say it on the back cover of my 2 books ago. That's what got me thinking about that Reviving Masculinity book. Was I was dating at that point, and I ran into so many women who told me there are no good men anymore.
Mm,
I'm like, well, how can that be? You know, and I started looking into reasons why, and it started to kind of make sense. And you know, I didn't write books called, you know, Crushing Femininity. I didn't write books called Fuck Women. I'm I, I'm on the side of let's make men better.
yeah,
Okay, I'm not pushing anybody down, and you do the same thing. I mean, your posts are all about let's build men up. Now, I'll call guys out, but that is also a difference between men and women, right? Men generally respond pretty well to being challenged. Hey, man, you can do better. Get your shit together. You know, men, okay, you know, men will respond to that. That's what dads do. Okay, dads push you and challenge you and get you to make mistakes so that you can learn. So that mentality works with men. It doesn't work with women. I coached girls for a season, and it was a disaster because you can't motivate them that way. They fall apart and they crumble. They get emotional. You've got to motivate them positively. It's a very different mindset. So of course, when a woman reads the stuff that we say to men, they think we're being such assholes. And of course, when they see us insulting each other together, they think we're being such assholes. But that's not the case. Again, you and I, same thing. We're trying to build men up, and it's not just so that men can be awesome. It's for them, right?
Right.
It's for everybody, it's for the whole world.
Yeah, this is such a fantastic point about women and men being so different when you motivate them. I remember this a dating coach saying that she had to give up on women eventually because they wouldn't accept that when they heard about the negatives, they just didn't want to hear it because she was
Yeah,
trying to be blunt with them and it was not working.
yeah, that's it's unfortunate. I remember a movie a long time ago. I'm blanking on the name, but the main character was a writer, and he finds himself in an elevator with a woman who is a big fan of his books, and he writes fiction, right? These stories, and he's known for really doing a good job of writing women and like knowing how women act and how they are, and so these women can really connect to these characters. And this woman's in the elevator, and she says, "How in the world can you do that? How do you understand women so well?" And he says, "It's simple. I start with a man, and I take away all reason and all accountability." Now, I'm not going to say that the reason is the key there, but the accountability is a big piece of it. I mean, that's generally a little bit more male territory, the accountability piece, where you can go, "Yep, I screwed that up," because we have so many fewer emotions attached to it, or at least emotions at such a much lower level, right? It's okay. All right. Yeah, I screwed this up, but I'm still a great, my construction business is doing well. I got money in the bank. I got a truck that runs. I got a roof over my head. So yeah, I said the wrong thing on the internet. No big deal. I can keep that perspective. So a
Yeah.
little easier to deal with that accountability piece. But for girls, it just is a wave of emotion, and they don't want to be failures, and they don't want to hurt anybody. And there's a lot of other factors that go on there that are just so much different than men, right?
I ultimately believe, just like with OnlyFans, that we men, maybe not you and I, but men in general, are responsible for that lack of accountability, especially in the age of social media where women constantly get positive reinforcement. Why would you listen to the negative one? Because there are always
Yeah,
simps out there. I love this word
yeah,
simp. I think it's overused,
I
but
do
I
too.
think it's a fantastic word. There's always
Yeah,
an army of simp waiting to come in and
yeah,
compliment you. Why would you listen to the negative stuff when you're getting constant positive validation? It's very
right.
understandable. It's also very dangerous.
I agree. And yeah, I agree. And again, I think we're going back to that, what I mentioned about the red pill thing, about the difference between what are you looking for, right? So you as a woman, you're never going to have trouble getting sex, like in adoration and kind words. But if you want to have a good long relationship, you're going to have more than that, right? It's a different sort of tack that you have to take. And what they're thinking, what they're getting is, yeah, there's tons of guys who would fuck you.
Yeah.
All right. But that doesn't mean you're a good person. And it doesn't mean there aren't things about yourself that you have to fix. But it's intoxicating. It's very charming to believe in all those things and to take all that positive vibe from the internet and let it spoil your sort of sense of perspective about yourself, right?
I think when you talk about this, it's called, I believe, the wall, hitting the wall in the red pill thing, and
It's undefeated.
yeah, it's a very real thing too, and I don't get why so many guys have satisfaction seeing women when it happens to them, that they never learn the difference between true affection and just someone wanting to have sex with you, and then
Mm,
just get off, go away. I think that's where a father comes in
that's
like
the daddy
very
issue for
strong.
sure.
Yeah, daddy issues. There's a reason for it. It's called fatherless behavior,
Hmm.
and a lot of women don't learn the difference until their looks fade, and all of a sudden, no one shows interest in them.
All
It's
right.
it's very sad.
Yeah, it's a wave. Yeah, the women with good fathers, they understand what that relationship is, because obviously they weren't having sex with their dad. I fucking hope not. But they understood how he treated her, how he looked at her, right?
Yeah.
So there was no sex, was out of the picture, and there was that relationship piece where, if you grow up without a dad and all of a sudden now you're starting to find that male attention and it's just sex, you don't know what that other piece is. A friend of mine named Sarah Moore, she's got a pretty big following, mentioned that to me. She wrote it in a text. She said, "You'll never understand what it's like to be looking for your father's love in every male interaction that you have. And man, did that floor me.
Yeah.
Like
Wow.
I couldn't fathom that. And that's truly what it is. You're trying to get that love that you never had, or that you had but was twisted, or whatever it was, with every man that you meet. And oh, that really hit me hard, that one. You're looking for your father's love in every male interaction that you have.
Holy
That was
shit.
heavy.
Yeah, that's deep. That's very true too.
Yeah. Yeah, she's sharp lady.
Yeah. And I also believe on what you touched on earlier when men are interacting with each other. Uh, I think respect is huge among men. If you don't have respect of other men, it usually means that you have nothing to contribute. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, absolutely. It's
yeah,
everything. It's absolutely everything between men. And that's the same thing in relationships. You hear this, it's in the Bible even, that a woman from a man wants love, and a man from a woman, if he has to choose, he's going to pick respect.
yeah. And it's different among men than when you talk about like what do you have to offer. I think
Mm.
every person in a friend group has something to offer. You don't have to be the strongest guy. I wanna
Nope.
take an example of just my page as an example. I have guys there. I'm not the strongest guy that hangs around there. I'm not the smartest. I'm not the best looking, etc., etc., etc. Like there are guys there that could kill me in less than a minute if they decided to.
Hmm.
But for some reason that they're all still there, and they're all I think sometimes it's enough just to care, because
Mm.
so many men don't have that. Nobody cares about them.
Yeah, I'll tell you, even I've got great friends, very close friends that I see regularly, and maybe half of them are guys that I know I could call in the middle of the night with an emotional concern,
Mm.
right? So that's even among good friends, that's rare. So if you're providing that, you're providing a tremendous thing for your people.
I think that's a huge thing. Like you have to have something to offer other men, even if it's just loyalty and friendship. Like that
Hmm.
that's very different. That's very important. Sorry. English is not my native language.
Oh, you're doing good. You're doing a great job, man. I couldn't guess other than your accent. I know that my role among my friends is I'm the facilitator, the recruiter, the glue, the combination, and the guy who brings everyone together. Um, I start the group texts. I organize the trips. I'm the one who puts everyone together. That's my role. That's what I have to offer, and knowing that helps you wrap your mind around being great at that and not worrying about having to be great at everything else, I would think. I mean, what is it with you and your group, John?
In general, I make everyone laugh first, but it's also the thing like if someone needs to feel better about themselves, I'm the one they call. So it's I think that's very big, and and
Huge.
and yeah, I think that's absolutely huge because everyone not everyone understands that it's natural for every man to have that point in your life, sometimes several times, where
Mm.
you don't feel good about yourself. Like it doesn't matter who you are, how much of a big shot you are, everyone has it. and
Yeah.
and through my show here in Iceland, Iceland is a very small country. It's just under 400,000 in total.
Oh, wow. We
Yeah,
have cities bigger than that.
exactly. And uh, my brother, for example, I never give up names because there are types of people who like come and talk to you that these are not the types of people you betray, but it is very, very, very surprising how what type of guys, high level guys and dangerous guys in society actually come
Mm.
and talk to you, and they because they need someone. It's very
Man, I would
odd.
say in a lot of cases, that's the guy who needs it the most. I mean, if they are that dangerous guy and he is known for that, and that's maybe part of his livelihood, he can't let out any weakness or he loses his edge, right? He loses his ability to do what he needs to do. So that guy probably needs it more than most, I would guess.
Yeah, and obviously, just out of loyalty, I wouldn't betray those guys' confidence. But on top of
Of
that,
course not.
I wouldn't dare to like. It's there are, yeah,
Well, good for you, man. You
yeah.
you must be very well respected. That's great.
Well,
And tr-
I think I get a lot of hate on the internet as well. We all do, but
we all
as long
do.
as, yeah, as long as you're not a there's a crowd that will always attack you, and I think we are at the time where people are a lot less afraid of that group now. I think that's a good time in society.
Yeah, back to what we started with there, that men are starting to understand that they have tremendous strength and have tremendous ability and don't need to hide anymore. And the people who have been so verbal, first of all, they're a tiny minority, just a very loud, tiny minority, and they are absolutely harmless. When you can get past that, the world opens right up. Hey.
I think that's very important. It started happening here in Iceland a couple of years ago. There was this small group that you speak of that people were afraid to say a lot of online, but thankfully it's changing and everything. But
Good. Yeah,
yeah,
I wish that more online interactions were more like in-person interactions. That's probably never going to happen, but be nice if it did.
I also think it's so strange that I've actually invited a couple of guys that hated my guts to on my show, talk to them,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they don't hate my guts anymore. It's
Well, they showed up. That's big. That's a big one right there.
yeah, and like kill them with kindness. I believe in that when people are actually willing to talk. That's
Hmm.
that's when I get disarmed in a bit. I find it fascinating that there's one side of of the spectrum that seems to be very unwilling to have a conversation with about regular things, and I truly think that that cost them their power that they had both in the U.S. and here in Iceland and probably all around Europe. They don't want to
Well,
talk.
it cost them my respect at
Yeah,
the very least. If you're not willing to talk about it, why not? Why would I ever take you seriously?
I've never met a person who was very passionate about a cause that
Hmm.
was afraid to show up and defend it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, unless you know that your whole defense is based in your emotions and you can't really logically debate anything. I mean, and I think that's the case with a lot of folks. I mean, early on in my show, I would invite very intelligent people, feminists or liberals or whatever it was, people that I thought I disagreed with. I thought that'd make a great show. Let's really have a discussion here and sort some things out. I'll learn some things, you'll learn some things, and I've yet to have somebody say yes. I mean,
Yeah.
they won't do it.
No,
And I hope
I've
that's not
experienced
because
the
I
same
seem
thing.
scary. Yeah, that happens all the time, right?
I think that's why they lost a lot of the public's respect. It's very odd for the public. Public. Speak like that's some not the public. I'm part of the public,
You're doing great,
obviously.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think when people who don't engage with this kind of stuff, who don't think about it too much, when they see
Hmm.
that you're not willing to like just have a conversation with the other side, it feels off to people who don't think about this.
There's another piece of it too, John, and that's that, you and I can look at these ideas, and although we do our best to embody them, I try to be the man that I describe in my books. I wouldn't know what to write about if I didn't. I'm writing about my own experiences and research, right? That's the whole point of it. But I can take these ideas and hold them out here. They're not me,
Yeah,
okay? They're an idea. So when you can talk about it in that way, well, then it ceases to become insulting. It ceases to become an attack on you, because they're not me. They are my ideas. And if you can discuss a thing in that way, now we can really have a great talk, right? Whereas if it's something that's, for me, what defines me is who I love, how I love them, how I respond to difficulty, the accomplishments that I have, the work that I've done. Um, that's who I am. It's not ideas, it's not thoughts. They're thin. They're made out of thin air. They're rarely are they even written down. Generally, they're just ideas, words, and thoughts. We can discuss that all you want. It's a great discussion. It's not me, right? Where the people who won't discuss that, they've got themselves intertwined with the ideas. They think they are the ideas. These LGBTQ folks, feminists, whatever, liberals, however you want to sort them out, they think that's who they are. This is my whole personality. And man, what a terrible area to inhabit. What a terrible environment to live in when you make it very obvious all of the things about you are all out here. And so any attack on them is inherently an attack on you. Of course, you're defensive all the time. Of course you're attacking people all the time preemptively. Of course you're upset and emotional, right? That's just not a healthy way to handle ideas, right?
This is a very, very good statement, like profound, I believe, and it's so true.
Right?
I keep getting asked about this myself, even from friends at the start when they were like, "Why- are you like the perfect man? Why do you have a podcast about masculinity?" And
Right, right.
I
I
I
get that
asked,
too.
yeah, I asked them in return, a guy who's passionate about football and wanted to have a football podcast. He doesn't have to be Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, like the best players in the world. He just has to be passionate about the game. And
Yeah, that's true. That's well said.
and I it's very good what you said there about people who think they embody their ideas or think that they are so perfect that they can't show any crack in their armor. When you expose those cracks, it becomes devastating. This was,
Mm.
yeah. I sorry, I'm wrapping my head around this. It was this was a fantastic saying, what you said there.
Glad you enjoyed it. And for you, I'm sure, for me, definitely when those cracks are exposed, man, I really do. I mean, it might be some initial sting, but what a great opportunity to improve. Same friend of mine, Sarah, mentioned that she thought I lacked empathy. And I think that in general, a woman is going to think that about a man,
Yeah.
just because we are different, okay? And so I took that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but I trust her and I respect her. So I thought that through, and I spent some time really thinking about it. Hey, is this a place where I can get better as a man, better as a person, better as a potential husband, better as a potential father, better as a coach, to understand empathy and get better at it? And the answer is yes. Like, I took some time, and it made me better. It's no different than your coach telling you, hey, you know what, you're if you're a basketball guy, like you don't do much with your left hand. You better work on your left hand. You can't shoot with your left. You can't dribble with your left. um, cool, now I got some place that I can improve.
Yeah.
I can be better as a result of this. I'm very secure in that I'm already pretty good. And you just gave me a way to be even better. To me, that seems very common sense. To me, that seems so obvious that it blows my mind. In fact, when people disagree, when people do have problems with being coached up a little bit, being criticized in a positive way. But I realize that, again, that they just have a lot of emotions attached to it, and they don't have that foundation of confidence that guys like you and I are lucky to have. So I can see that makes sense.
I think that's why competition is so important for men.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's a fantastic place to start realizing you're not the best at everything, and you will never will be. So
Yeah,
that
that's
enable.
chapter 14.
Oh,
Chapter
really?
14, and this one is competition. Yeah, that's a very uniquely male thing. I mean,
Yeah.
women are competitive with each other too, but it fleshes out in a much different way. They're kind of competitive in more of a negative way. I like to say this: another difference between men and women. Guys, you and I, say, John, we're in high school and we're dating. You're dating a girl and I sleep with her. Now we'll probably get in a fist fight, but in the end, you and I are probably still going to be friends, and the girl's going to be gone, right? We both know we can't trust her. Whereas if the roles are reversed, if it's two women dating the same guy, they're going to fight. They'll probably never talk again, but somebody's leaving with the guy. So the loyalty among women it's at a different level. For men,
Yeah.
it's a lot higher, and their competition is, I want to have this thing so that you can't have it. And we don't think that way. You and I don't think that way. We just want to try to see how good we can be. It's a little different.
This is that's a great point. I when it comes to I remember this is not competition related, but it's kind of related in what you were kind of mentioning. I remember when
Hmm.
I was younger, we speak about this all the time. It was this obvious when we were kids, me and a few of my friends. There were these
Hmm.
two older guys who were very prominent in the town, and they could not be more
Okay.
different. They were both like one of them was
From each
kind of
other.
a yeah, and they were kind of braggarts, but one of them kind of had confidence, and he would always
Okay.
pull us up with him. Like
Okay.
he
That's
was
good
like,
leadership.
yeah,
That's
he
good
was, yeah,
leadership right
exactly.
there.
He was like this cocky guy. Some people couldn't stand him
Hmm.
because they thought he was so cocky, but he was always
Hmm.
take others and raise them up. Whereas the other one,
That's a good man.
yeah, he came off as cocky, but he would like push you down, so he would look
Hmm.
like the man. I This is one of
Never
them
works.
is a great role model. The other one is a terrible one.
I agree. Yeah, no doubt about that. I thought you were going to tell me that they ended up fighting.
No, not in this case. They did eventually at one time, but it was not related to this. It was over a woman,
Gotcha.
obviously.
Yeah, so of course. What isn't? Yeah, so that's just immature masculinity versus mature masculinity. So that guy who pushes people down and has anger driving his boisterousness, that's just the guy who has that's the red pill guy. That's the guy who's in it for himself and doesn't understand yet that you build your strength so you can give it away, so that you can help people, so that you can role model. He doesn't understand that piece, and that's the transition. That's the transition between boyhood and manhood. Whereas that other young guy sounds like he understood that my job is to lead. I mean, if you have the ability, if you're a big, strong guy, charismatic, good athlete, whatever it is, whatever aspect you are in your life, whatever stage you are in life, if you know you're pretty good and you're not using it to help people, what good are you? What use are you to the world? You're sacrificing the gift. What was the point of making yourself great if it doesn't live on? Hey,
I think it's very good that you compare this to the red pill, because you always see, as I mentioned about the red pill, it's 50% you tell people, like you relate with their problems, but then you try to sell them poison as a solution. And
right.
you can always
Exactly
see
right.
these guys. Yeah, you can always see these guys like, I'm better than you. I have this car, even if you don't have it, even if it's a rental, blah blah blah. It's always about I am better than you, instead of
Right.
just I'm one of you.
Yeah, it's what you're taking and not what you're giving, right?
Yeah.
Good for you, man. I have a nice truck. I got a motorcycle. I've got stuff in my life, but none of it. I'm still a great man without all that shit, right? And there's a confidence level there too. And granted, it's the wisdom of our years. I'm 48 years old. I didn't always think this way. I knew in high school if I had a great car, I'd get chicks.
Yeah.
And that was the whole point, right? But it was about taking. What can I get,
Yeah.
and not what can I give. And yeah, again, going back to the rites of passage thing, if nobody's teaching you that you need to do that, why would you do it, right? It's not innate. It must be taught. And again, that's why we need the male role models. They've got to teach this stuff.
If your father isn't there to show you how to treat your mother, how will you know how to behave as a man?
Yeah, I was lucky in that way. My parents had a very loving relationship. They made it like 24 years. They got divorced right when I graduated from high school. So I was 17 or 18 years old at the time. But all the way up until that point, I watched, my dad was always grabbing my mom's ass and kissing her while she was doing the dishes. And they hung out all the time and had a lot of fun together. And I saw a great relationship. And I probably would be far less capable of being a good man in a relationship had I not seen that. What a great gift, Yeah, and there's no place else you're going to learn it as well as you learn it at home, right?
I think that's a fantastic way to close the show for now. But Travis, I would
Fair enough.
love to do this again sometime.
I would too, man. It's been a great conversation. We can do it anytime you want. I don't know if you do forums or, round tables or any stuff like that. I'll jump in anytime you want to. At least certainly through the winter here. My time is my own through probably middle of April. I've got all kinds of time, and then I'll start to get busy with the construction work.
I'm actually looking to do something like a roundtable thing, adding, that's all in the works, a Discord server, et cetera, to bring in a community and stuff like that. It's the business side and the organization has always been my weak point. I've always been the guy that, I feel guilty even making a little money from this, even if it's a huge amount of effort and time. It's still that because there are so many sleazebags out there, I feel like I'm one of them just for it. That it's something I've
No, it's not true. I've experienced some sleazebags. You're not one of them, John. Have a little oh shit! My perfect time to shut down. My battery just died on my camera. Yeah, do it. Yeah, make